Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to This is an IT Support Group. I'm joined today with Eric Harless from N-able. He is the head backup nerd, and he's going to be joining us today talking a little bit about backups, restoring, and ransomware. Eric, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate you guys having me today. So my name is Eric Harless. My role at N-able is that of head backup nerd. I've been with the organization now about 12 years, focusing on our Cove data protection line of products between community, evangelist, and product management. So glad to be here today.
Cool. So I guess today we're going to be covering stuff like ransomware, why that's a top threat, especially this year, why backup's critical for our organization's defense. And also, we're going to have a little look into Cove data protection and how it's designed to make recovery faster, safer, and even easier. So I guess let's jump right in. If we talk a little bit first, Eric, about the landscape of ransomware, because we know that there's loads of news about ransomware and how organizations are getting attacked constantly and ransomware. How can these organizations protect themselves, and how is this going to evolve over the next few years? Is it going to get worse?
Well, most definitely it's going to get worse. It's going to continue to change significantly too, as the bad actors find new ways to cripple your systems and get in and compromise your resources. So it's not a matter of if you're going to get hacked, or it's a matter of really when you're going to get hacked. And we look at it here at N-able as backup being that last line of defense. So once you do have a bad actor get into your system, they're going to compromise something. Now, you're going to have tools likely in place to help mitigate that, to limit the exposure. But whether in the system for a week or a month, that level of dwell is going to allow them to get access to certain amounts of information, possibly compromise it or damage it. And having good backups in place that you can roll back to are going to help ensure you've got that business continuity and business resiliency.
So I guess attackers specifically are trying to target or disable backup systems, and how do they achieve that these days? And can you kind of outline that a bit and how we can safeguard our data protection?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of ways. Obviously, just something as simple as social engineering to find out what backup applications you've got in place, or system credential elevation and getting administrative rights onto the system. They can see what software is installed, and very quickly make a laundry list of how they might go about attacking the backups that you have inside of your system. A couple key ways to ensure that if they do get in, they're not going to destroy all of your backups, is to rely on a cloud-based backup solution, something that's going to maintain an offsite copy for you. Those are going to be traditionally air-gapped. They're going to be immutable storage, stored on multiple types of media. You'll often hear it referred to as a 3-2-1 backup model. 3 copies of your data on 2 different types of media with at least one offsite, or some variation of that 3-2-1-1-1-1, or different structures there. And that's old school, but it works. Having it out there is really going to help ensure that when they compromise your local systems, then you can get that data back. And it's also good for things like total site loss, natural disasters, fires, theft, floods, hurricanes, things of that nature. So it's not a one size fits all. I'm sorry, it's not a one trick pony. It's a scenario that you can use for lots of different configurations.
Cool. So I guess one buzzword that everyone is talking about, and we're not going to hear consistently being ignored for a long time, is AI. And how do you think that AI-driven attacks are going to change how these businesses should prepare for ransomware?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. I honestly am scared every time I think about what AI can do this. Just a good Google search can set you up right now, or a query across the dark web can set you up with predefined attack vectors to get into an environment, without even thinking about custom exploits and things of that nature. So yeah, AI is just going to make this worse. AI is going to be able to quickly interrogate your environment through just a tiny little bit of access, and find the next piece of access to get itself elevated and elevated and elevated until it's got full control. Passwords, multi-factor authentication, those are all great. But realistically, zero trust type of configurations, you've got to think that way. You need to start thinking about isolated networks. This is something that's really, really important, since those attack vectors are out there. If you only have on-premise data protection, then they're gonna look for ways to delete your VSS snapshots, to hop onto your NAS or your iSCSI volume, to compromise your backup servers, your dedicated appliances that you've got on the network. And don't get me wrong, those are nice, great tools for rapid recovery, but you need something else that's offsite, an offsite replica, an offsite sync, something that is also air-gapped and immutable, so that corruption of the local backup copy doesn't propagate out to corruption of the cloud copy. It's really scary. We're trying to go at it from a couple of different angles now. We're looking at how can we detect that ransomware, detect those bad actors before they compromise your backups. And now I'm not talking about getting into the space of the cybersecurity players and the various security tools, but just making backup and recovery more aware that somebody's trying to damage your secondary copies, or they're querying your offsite copies, through the use of things like honeypots.
Yeah.
Honeypots are going to allow us to see that somebody's trying to manipulate something that's not supposed to be manipulated. They're trying to delete a data set that would not traditionally be deleted in that manner, and then we can lock things down and throw those red flags up, even if your cybersecurity tools didn't manage to flag it, and help ahead of time.
I guess on that, we kind of mentioned a few aspects there, like NAS systems. These are all traditional kind of backup systems that we talk about. How do we know that when we talk about how we can back up our data, a lot of businesses tend to stick with, especially the smaller to medium businesses, they still have those legacy backup systems in place.
They do.
How can you kind of highlight those challenges with those approaches, and why is a backup strategy that includes cloud backups such a game changer, especially when we look at ransomware and stuff like that?
So if you think back to some of the legacy systems that have been around now for 25, 30 plus years, your tried and true backup and recovery solutions, they may have started out going to tape, and you send the tape off site, and the tape was great because that's a mutable, air-gapped copy of the data. But as we've been told for decades now, tape is dead, and those solutions all have really moved to pushing data to like local dedupe appliances, or local backup to disk, maybe a local copy and then a sync copy that gets replicated up to the cloud at a later time. Those local copies are definitely at risk. If they can be compromised before they're sent off site, then you're sending off corrupted or damaged data. If deletion at the source can trigger deletion at the destination, then that's a problem. And these legacy apps, you used to buy these perpetually. So you bought your XYZ backup without naming any names, and you got the 2023 edition, and the next year you bought the 2024 and the 2025 edition. If you had maintenance that you're paying for, or maybe you bought version upgrades, but maybe you didn't have the budget for it, so you're still using a version from 2020. Those things are loaded with potential zero-day threats now, because they haven't been updated or patched. They haven't been following the path of the bad actor. So you've got systems out there now that are entry points for the bad actors. They are not regularly being patched or updated. You've got to go through and do your manual maintenance, your manual patching, schedule those windows and those opportunities, assuming you even have rights to that software. Subscriptions make it better, but if you still have to do your own patching and updates, that's a risk. If you have to buy a dedicated server or build a dedicated system to do your backups and push your agents out, those are a problem.
Yeah, I guess on that, when we talk about legacy backup systems and then we've got cloud backup systems, a lot of businesses will be thinking about time when it comes to recovery, because time is money, especially for businesses that are really, they need clients to access their data. They don't want to have them wait. Great, the backup is on the cloud system, but it's going to take us twice as long to get access to it, maybe. So what's the recovery speed like with cloud backup compared to those older on-prem systems?
So that's when you're going to take advantage of the local side as well. In the event of a single server compromise or a loss, restoring locally and restoring from the cloud in today's modern bandwidth environments, really not a big deal. If you've got halfway decent cable or DSL or business level fiber or even residential level fiber coming into your environment, pulling back a single server or a resource or two is really not going to be a big deal. It's when you've got an entire site that's been compromised or lost that pulling everything from the cloud definitely can be a challenge. And that's where you're going to take advantage more of a hybrid type of approach, where you not only have a cloud copy, but you're also going to maintain some form of local copies. It's just key making sure that those are segregated to the point that damage to the local does not propagate up to the cloud. In the event of failure, yes, always go to the local tapes first, go to the local copies, the local images. We refer to them as standby images. So while I can have local and compressed dedupe data that you can use to restore from locally, I've also got up to the last backup offline virtual machines that can be booted. The recovery time is the time it takes to boot a virtual machine and update DNS to connect to the system. Or you boot it up in a cloud recovery environment. So maybe you're not going to restore it back to on-premise, but you're going to extend a VPN out to Azure, out to a data center with VMware or Hyper-V is running, and just bring up that standby copy that is there that's been air-gapped up until this point. So there's still a lot of options available, but yes, the benefit of cloud backup is also the detriment because it is offsite, and not everybody's got a great connection these days.
So I guess even if we're talking about, cloud backups these days are pretty solid. I think it's quite rare that people will face issues unless there's a massive outage of internet access for any given reason. In which case you've got a much bigger problem. But
correct.
If I'm an MSP that is still managing the on-prem hardware, what is my biggest risk to exposure with that hardware?
Probably the hardware itself. Patching the hardware. Is it an old BIOS version? Can they get into the system? Can they compromise it? People don't think sometimes either. Just complacency. They stand up a backup server, a backup appliance that's on the domain. So now an exploit to get elevation on the domain is now giving you access to not only the production systems, but the backup systems. Maybe you're storing those copies of backed up images on iSCSI. Well, that's just a mounted disk at this point that is fully exposed, whereas something like SMB3 storage on a NAS behind additional user credentials is going to be more ideal. Air gap them on premise if you can, even separate networks, separate segments, so that a bad actor roaming around the network can't actually find those copies. Not exposing who you're using for backup and recovery software as well. When you're sending out emailed reports and alerts and screenshots and validation for your cybersecurity companies and things like that, a lot of times, there's these laundry lists of all the tools that you're using. Not specifying what tools you're using in order to monitor and protect and back up can also be helpful. It's nice that having a little bit level of obscurity there, while it's not a replacement for good security, obscurity is going to cause the bad actor to do a little bit more work.
Security and obscurity, really, isn't it?
yeah, it is. I hate to say it, but why advertise the manufacturer of your door lock if you don't have to, right? The other thing is that those bad actors are going to dwell on those systems now for a lot longer than they would have historically. They are trying to get as much access to the environment as they can, do as much damage as possible, and limit your opportunities when it comes to recovery. So maybe they're not going to go in and immediately delete your backups, but they might want to change your backup configurations. So being able to lock those things down at a server-side policy or a cloud-side policy also makes a lot of sense. A lot of backup applications are very client-side driven. You hop on the machine, you tell it how you want to configure retention and selections and things of that nature. We just went through an interesting exercise at a partner conference here in Colorado, I think about 2 weeks ago. And we did many tabletops, various boardrooms, and just taking the audience through tabletops, kind of a choose your own adventure type of approach. And, letting the audience decide, do we go left? Do we go right? Do we comply with the documented recovery steps, or do we kind of go out and venture out into the wild to live it ourselves? It was very, very eye-opening to see even how the audience of MSPs and business owners, really went different paths. I don't think we had the same journey in any of the different boardrooms we went through. Everybody's got a different thought or concept, and there probably is no right answer in a lot of those scenarios, because the bad actor is always going to find a way to get in, always find a way to damage it. You really just need a last line of defense to get it back to where it was before.
So I think that just on that, I think a lot of folks watching, they're probably not fully set on that maybe using a backup system that is working, but they're concerned about the longevity or if the data is going to be protected. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit more down the line of Cove, and for those that aren't familiar with it, could you break down how the Cove data protection reduces the ransomware risk and actually helps improve those recovery outcomes?
I tell you what, let me bring up the UI really quick, or do a quick screen share on it, and I'll kind of give you a high-level overview of this. So with Cove being a cloud-first backup and recovery solution, note I said cloud-first, not cloud-only. So we are going to allow you to maintain a primary offsite backup copy of your protected data in a regional data center, tied to your region. So U.S. data stays in the U.S., Canadian data stays in our Toronto or Montreal data centers, European data in the EU, UK, and the UK, and so on. 27 data centers on 17 countries on 4 continents right now.
Wow.
But data sovereignty. So we're locked into the region, so you can ensure that you're going to comply with any of your regional requirements. Being cloud first, we're striving to get a full copy of the backup data sent offsite. We use some really efficient data deduplication and encryption to ensure that we're sending as little data across the wire as we have to, and we never send the same data twice. So we're constantly deduping at a sub-file variable byte level. And the key thing here is that that minimal amount of space, it might be a third of a percent of your overall selected size on a daily basis. A lot less data than you're going to use if you're protecting local image-based backup, local backup appliances, things of that nature. Those are optimized for rapid restore on premise. We're optimized for very efficient bandwidth, minimal transfer, and minimal storage utilization. So it's coded a bit differently to be beneficial for MSPs that want to take the data offsite. And it also means longer term retention. So the ability to come in and define a retention policy that is going to fit your needs, not one that's going to fit your storage budget or your bandwidth budget. So if you want to come in and add a customizable retention policy, you choose how many days of intra-daily backups you want to keep. So it'd be your hourlies, every 2, every 4, every 6 hour backups that you're running, and keep those up to 30 days. Your daily backup, that last good backup of the day, we can keep that for up to 365 days. Now that's local if you choose on what we call a local speed vault, effectively any dumb storage, USB disk, external hard drive, NAS device, iSCSI volume, anywhere you may want to keep it inside of the local environment, including repurposed backup appliance from XYZ vendor that maybe you're no longer using. But then you can also have that data fully synchronized offsite into the N-able storage cloud, up to 52 weeks of weeklies, 36 months of end of months, and then up to 10 years of end of year. And you're not paying any additional licensing or storage costs for that. But you determine the retention based on compliance needs, and you don't have to come in and say, oh, well, hey, I'm running out of space. I'm getting near my capacity. And then you start to whittle down these retention requirements, like you might do with some other vendors, to free up space so you can manage to keep it under budget, or control the amount of bandwidth you're sending on a daily basis. If your backup can't complete in a 24-hour window, you've got to think about doing something in order to reduce the amount of traffic.
Yeah.
And we just don't run into those problems. Now, the concern, though, is if you're sending it all off site, how do I get it back, right? And that's where those on-premise solutions, those local image level solutions, have got stand-up virtual machines ready to go. And if you plan for that, that's an easy type of solution. Also, you just grab a standby copy, sitting either on a local Hyper-V, local ESX inside of the Azure environment, and you can grab those guys and choose to either boot those up from a virtual machine perspective, pause the recovery on those, or even roll those back to an earlier point in time before the ransomware took effect. So, we can grab a session here. Let's say the ransomware came through over the weekend. I can come into Friday, see what my last backup session were on Friday. I'm doing backups every single hour here. We'll go with that 12 noon session and hit next and confirm. And it'll start to revert this virtual machine image I've got sitting here back to the earlier point in time, just pulling down the deltas from the cloud. So not rebuilding the entire system, but just a few bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, or gigabytes it needed to revert the image. So you don't have to think about recovering full machines, just the pieces you need to get back to before the ransomware attack happened.
That's much more bandwidth healthy.
Yeah. If this session were compromised also, then I would just come in here and hit roll back and pick the one right before, or go back 10 sessions and then work my way forward with just file restores. So some great ways to take advantage of sandbox environments.
Yeah. So I was going to say just a couple of questions I had on Cove itself. Are there any features that you'd say might surprise new users that they didn't expect, but your clients end up loving about this Cove system?
Let me think about that one for a second. There's lots of great features that are inside of here, from the dashboard and single pane of glass and, point and click capabilities. From a security perspective, I'm not punching a hole in each of my customers' firewalls in order to, get in to manage their environments.
Yeah.
So it's all a single dashboard, simple, easy deployment. There's no patching. So every one of the backup agents or clients that are out there, they auto update in the system. So there's no reboots required either. So that's all
to worry about.
Pet peeve of mine is patching and updating. MSPs have got enough to worry about with operating systems. They shouldn't have to patch their backup environment. We've recently introduced some new honeypot features, honeypot components, I guess. So that way, if a bad actor were to start to look around the system, start to mess with any of the data we've protected, we'd start to see those actions, and we can take appropriate actions very quickly. That's only been rolled out now for a very, very short period of time, and we've already seen it in play and already saved customer data with that interaction. Something else to be said for those auto updates. As we see bad actors trying new things, trying to get in to compromise that data, we can take action. We can roll it out in force versus you not being aware that, oh, well, hey, this vulnerability exists, and have you patched your systems. Backup appliances, backup servers, they're just as bad for that, not just the clients themselves. Imagine if you've got an on-premise appliance that's got a 0-day vulnerability, and they can do an elevated access to it and hop on that system. They can shrink your retention and not tell you. They can delete your backups. They can change so that you're not backing up the C drive on any of your machines. And you're still getting good daily backups of 5 files. You see green across your dashboard, and then they strike, and then you've got a couple days of restores you can do, and that's it.
That's cool. So we've got probably got a few people watching that are from MSPs that most likely have multiple customer environments, and they're managing many different environments. What kind of benefits does Cove offer, and how do they help MSPs who are managing those multiple customer environments?
It is a multi-tenant dashboard, so you're going to come in at a reseller or an MSP level. The ability to break that out into multiple service organizations, multiple end customers, down to even a site level. So full segregation there. You can control the encryption keys, or you can have them managed by the system. Single roll-up reporting, so I can see exactly where my failures are across all my devices, across all my domains. It's not just servers, it's not just workstations, it's also M365 environments. So I can see here my Exchange, my OneDrive, my SharePoint, my Teams, and understand that's being backed up successfully as well. all built in-house. So this is not us piecing together multiple technologies from multiple acquisitions and trying to present it as a single dashboard. It is all built internally.
Yeah, that's really impressive stuff. So you mentioned immutability earlier. What exactly makes a backup in Cove immutable to attack?
So you said something very interesting there. What makes it immutable inside a Cove? And not everybody realizes this yet, but immutability is not very clearly defined in the industry. It's a marketing buzzword more than anything. You'll hear air gapped, you'll hear erasure coding, you'll hear worm. Those are actually more defined pieces of technology. Immutability really means that it's protected from inadvertent or malicious deletion. But immutability doesn't mean that it's immune to delete. You're going to see vendors put a lot of different controls into their platforms to control or enable immutability. Some of it'll be physical air gaps, virtual air gaps, snapshots, various other pieces of technology that are there. We've got a couple key things as far as our ability to undelete changes. So if a bad actor were to get into the environment and purge and delete something, I can undo those changes or configurations for a fixed period of time, reverting you back to the way it looked before those changes were made.
I think one thing that MSPs might be thinking about at the top end is obviously there's the external threats, but there's also the insider threat of maybe a rogue employee, or maybe by complete accident they delete something. They delete a client's backup of their tenant or one of their VMs or something, and they go, "Oh bugger, I'm really sorry. Can you help with that?" How quickly is it to restore those kind of mistakes in Cove?
So it's something like this where I've selected, 4 devices here and hit delete device, and I get my little, hey, one of those cannot be removed at the moment. So I've got a recovery plan on it, which is actually blocking those deletions. Yeah. So we can block some of them automatically. We do force you to confirm the deletions, but if you were to accidentally delete something, a trusted employee already through the MFA, just doing normal user or customer offboarding, actually deletes a server he shouldn't or a workstation he shouldn't. We can undo that for 30 days, and it is just a quick call into our support team, and they can have that triggered, that soft undelete. There is no way for them to force the deletion earlier or to purge that deletion. So, there's no way to come in and delete those and then call support and say, "Hey, purge those for me." They're going to be there capable of being rolled back for up to 30 days. Configuration changes, you modified retention, you deleted a device, you deleted a customer, almost all of that can be reverted back to the way it was. And then even past that soft undelete that support can do, there are additional back-end, let's say snapshots, for lack of a better term, that are accessible, that can't be deleted or purged or accessed via the API. They actually require a different developer to log in through a different platform in order to get to that resource. So multiple layers, definitely air gapped. Lots of other stringent controls there in place too, through mandatory multi-factor authentication. Something to note is that our immutability feature is on by default. It is not something you have to configure or remember to turn on or even pay extra for. It's just there.
Because I've had a little comment just come in from our Discord from James, and he asks, "What's the fastest recovery time that you've seen with Cove after an actual ransomware incident?"
Well, the fastest you could bring a machine up is really going to be the time it takes to boot a virtual machine, and bring that guy online. That's assuming that your standby machine was not compromised and so on. Maybe you're going to roll it back to an earlier point. You could be talking 15 or 20 minutes to roll it back to an earlier point in time before the breach, before the compromise, and bring that up. Now we're talking one server there, things like that. But I've seen bad actors where they managed to get into the MSP's remote control tool, into their RMM platform, use the RMM platform to push out the ransomware. Using the tools the way they were not intended to be used. They're already sitting on the technician's console. He's already passed the MFA, already sitting in a UI. deleting devices and pushing out things. And in a scenario like that, the technician called into our support. A Cove technician undeleted the backup devices that had been removed from the console. That's going to take probably 4 to 7 minutes per device. Revert those back, reinstall the agent on the system, and get the backups back up and going. The key thing is they got greedy. They attempted to push ransomware out, delete the backups, and go through all those processes so fast. Not everything was able to take hold. When there's dwell, though, it can very easily take a week to get something back and get the customer fully up and running. Not because it takes that long to get back a single machine, but you've got to go through, all of the procedures. You've got to contact your cyber insurance providers. You've got to go through the various notifications, the forensics aspects of it. Not everybody is at the leisure just to say, format over that compromised machine and restore this point in time and you're back up and running. I wish it was that easy. And it is that way. Hardware failure, right? Hardware failure, you can be back up and running very quickly. With ransomware, you might actually have, a week or a longer period because you have to go through all of those various steps, probably quarantining the environment, locking things down, making sure that the actions and attempts to recovery aren't going to compromise your ability to recover something else.
Cool. So I guess just on Cove specifically, do we want to have a little look into maybe how easy it is to set up a new instance? How would a client that gets Cove for the first time start integrating it into their environments?
So I just did a first time install on this machine here. So I've got a brand new backup agent sitting right here. Was just put in here at 1:16 p.m. today. So I can show you a little bit of that. As far as getting access to the console, the dashboard, that's a very, very simple trial process that you can turn on. There's no obligation or commitment for that. That's just N-able.com/Cove. And you can get yourself a free trial, evaluate for 30 days, try all the features out. But once you're in the console, once you're in the dashboard, adding a new device is very, very simple. Add device wizard. You'll choose whether you want to turn on a server or workstation or an M365 domain. It's going to ask you a couple quick questions as far as what customer, what tenant level do you want to deploy this at? And don't worry, you don't need to build out a full tenant structure to start. You can move them around later and organize them, or you can add new customers and end customers into your tree here. We'll go in and drill down a little bit and just drop this into one of my regional, my Beijing site, for example. At time of deployment, you can choose retention, 7 intradailies, 30 days, 12 weeks, 6 months, 3 years, full retention, test retention policy, some ones I've predefined here. We'll grab a 10-year retention. I'm going to back up. I've got a 24-hour RPO that's here, a 1 hour, a 4 hour. We'll go ahead and do the 1 hour RPO, backing up once every hour at a random time. So it's not going to start on the hour, but sometime randomly between 1 and
that's quite a helpful feature, actually.
And 2, yeah. It means you're not going to create a lot of gummed up networks at the top of every hour.
And it's not also predictable for the threat actors to know when you're backing up.
That is a good point also. Windows, Mac, and Linux. So it is a multi-platform application. Managed encryption keys or self-managed. And then you can actually control that key at time of deployment. We'll go with system managed because I don't want to remember this one. Don't want to have to put it in my documentation system. And next. This is going to give me a package installer that's going to be designed specifically for this customer, this retention, this profile for Windows. Once I've downloaded that, this unique installer can be ran on one or hundreds of machines at that particular end customer or site. It'll automatically register with inside of the dashboard, create a new device, apply the scheduling, selections, inclusions, exclusions. So at this point, I've got this installer. It's set it and forget it. I push this out with my RMM on one machine or 1,000 machines over the course of a weekend. It's going to start the backups. I really don't need to go back and do anything unless I want to set up some advanced alerting or notifications, things like that.
Awesome.
That's going to give me a local backup client on the local machine. Here, just talking through localhost 5000. You go to the backup tab. You can see it's already protecting file and folder and system state. Those are locked down. They cannot be changed locally, meaning the bad actor can't get in there and deselect data. even if you uninstall this agent, does not impact any of the cloud storage. So all those restores are still
that's
available.
quite a good thing to know.
Yeah. Other data sources, I want to do my VMware backup host level like you do with a Veeam. If I'm going to do some name drops out there, I can back up at a host level or a guest level. Network shares, I want to add a UNC path so that I can come in and say, back up my Synology or my QNAP or my Buffalo NAS and protect that data. Or, connect across the network and grab an old, Windows Server 2003 box that maybe I can't run an agent on anymore.
That's helpful.
Yeah. When it comes to restores, I obviously don't have anything in here at the moment yet, but calendar-based restores, you pick your data source, you pick your calendar time, will give you the ability to do granular file, folder, directory, application, or virtual restores. Convert a full machine into a virtual image on VMware or Hyper-V, or push it up to Azure as well.
Nice stuff.
Let's see. Local vaults. You want to maintain that local copy, then I'll turn the vault on. I'm going to go to my D drive, which is a iSCSI volume, and hit save. So now to put a copy of the data there, deduped, compressed, and encrypted. If that gets compromised, not a problem. It can't impact the cloud storage. Although this is not the most secure method, I would recommend a network share. And we're going to recommend things like workgroup level security. Don't reuse your usernames and passwords, things like that. Just tips to ensure that you've got the highest level of security for your device.
That's really good. So I think one of the key takeaways from this that I'm seeing is any techs that are trying to set this stuff up, it's a win-win situation because all of the data, it allows the customization locally, and your traditional backup systems, whether it's a local NAS or network NAS or whatever it is, that then goes on as normal and all through this system. And in addition to that, you've also got all those cloud backups that are managed in the N-able panels, which is just working nicely together rather than replacing or adding another single point of failure. It just adds an additional system to your already well set up backup system.
Our standard default is like a 30-day retention policy. Obviously, you can configure it from there, but we're trying to emulate that traditional grandfather, father, son tape approach that we would have used from a legacy perspective.
Yeah,
people still like to do once daily backups for some reason, even though with VSS, with open file capabilities, with the available bandwidth that most organizations have, you can very easily run these things every hour and limit the amount of data loss you're going to run into. But not only can we back up every hour, but here you can see with some of these guys, I'm actually doing restores 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and so on. So I'm actually restoring these machines in an offline state, that offline VM, and I'm daily, weekly, monthly booting it so that we can give proof of life. So you get this screenshot of a login screen for the given device, kind of proof of life that the system is recoverable for a given 11:03 a.m. Today. So it was restored at 12:12 p.m. Took 4 minutes and 6 seconds to actually update the offline virtual machine to that point in time. So to that earlier question from the audience, how long would it take me in a ransomware scenario to recover this machine? Well, if this is standing on a separate hypervisor at a colo or at the MSP site, it took 4 minutes to restore it to that point in time, the amount of time it takes to extend your VPN and log in.
Yeah, that's great. So I don't know if there's is there any specifics of Cove that you'd like to show off that we haven't already covered? I think we've done quite well.
I think we have. I did want to do a couple leave behinds for the audience, though. There is a N-able threat report that we had put together. I think you got the link there to drop in for the audience.
I'll put that in the chat now.
But this is going to talk a little bit more about that, the threat actors, the vectors that they're going after, and what we're doing here at N-able, not only on the backup and recovery side, but also on the front end threat mitigation side to help ensure the bad actors don't get in. Although no matter who you're using from a security perspective, it's great. It's insurance, but don't rely on that one. Rely on having good backups behind the scenes. The other thing that I wanted to show off, let me think about that one for a second.
That's all right.
I've hit so many of the good pieces here. I guess I might say that from a compatibility perspective, not everybody out there has the luxury of standardizing on a single backup and recovery tool. You're going to have customers that have got a need to retain data for 4, 7 years, 10 years, that are going to have legacy backup applications that maybe you just need to have them pay a license for and store on a shelf. We see that for that reason, Cove is really designed to interact or interoperate with a lot of other products out there. It's not just an N-able only product. So if you've got other third-party RMMs, different deployment methodologies, you've got a need to essentially report on multiple backup applications. We've got very, very open APIs, some really, really good API documentation, some scripting repositories out there. We work with really good third parties like the folks over at Backup Radar or Gradient MSP to help consolidate a lot of this data in, so you can have the Cove data sitting right alongside your Veeam, Acronis, StorageCraft, ArcServe, whoever it may be.
Great stuff. So I think the one other link that we had to look at was the Cove Data Protection product itself. And if there's anything that we wanted to point out to the audience today, I will put it in the chat if folks want to go and look in a little bit more about how they can integrate Cove into their environments.
Yep, that was that should be the trial form. This guy right here, n-able.com/Cove. It'll redirect you a little bit. Obviously, you can sign up for a demo there, or start your own trial and play through. And once again, you control the encryption keys. Anything that you put in there, once the trial is over, you can purge that out, or we'll purge it out for you automatically as part of our SOC 2 compliance once the trial expires.
That's great stuff. So I think one last question from me, Eric, is I think I know what the answer is going to be, but what's one piece of advice that you'd give to businesses right now that in order to strengthen their ransomware defense and their backups?
Do your recovery testing. Don't make the assumption that just because you have backups in place that they're going to save you, when the ransomware gets through. Schedule regular testing, whether it's automated through the application that you're using, or assign one of your technicians with a handful of devices they're going to test each month or each quarter. And when they complete that list, they've got a new list waiting for them. Cycle through those. It's a very, very old recommendation to test your backups, or more importantly, test your restores. Virtualization is your greatest enabler of that today, and just not enough folks are doing it. So that way, when the customer calls, when they're on the line saying, hey, we've got a server down or we've been hit, with a surety that you're going to be able to get that data back from a known good point.
Yeah, well, that is absolutely brilliant stuff. Eric, thank you again for joining us today. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to mention, how these folks can get in touch with you. Maybe if they want to chat a bit more about how to back up their systems a bit better.
Oh, yeah, not a bad idea there. So let me drop off an email address here. It's Eric.Harless, ERIC.HARLESS at N-able, N-able.com. Be more than happy to have a consult with you, talk through your current solutions, and help you identify gaps.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thanks again for joining us, Eric. And thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you next time. See you later.